we have with us today a very special guest. We've been talking about this for a while, and finally, all of our schedules have clicked together, and we're able to do it. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gary Cantrell.
The one and only man with a name so strong, I still think it ought to be a cocktail. You know what I mean? That is such a great name.
You come up with the right cocktail and we'll drink it. I promise you that.
I don't know what, I mean, it's got to be something really, really nice, you know, really high-end type situation, you know, so. Yeah,
we're going to be thinking about. I think triple sex probably involved in that for sure.
You got till January.
Things.
We do.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We do.
I don't drink often, but you figure it out and we'll do it.
I love it. I love it, man.
I got all the time in the world, man. I got laid off back in June, so now I'm just flying by the seat of my pants right now. So let's do it.
Well, I mean, that jumps right into like I was going to say, let's talk about your story here, Gary, because I know the Bubba Army that's listening to this, very, very familiar with you, your story, and everything that you do. But the rest of the nation that's watching this right now on Right Now TV, not so familiar. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what all you do exactly, Gary.
My God, how much time do we have, by the way?
We got all the time in the world.
let me figure out if I can summarize it, and then you can pick apart where you'd like to go from there. I mean, my earliest instance of creating anything was probably in the mid-90s when I picked up a guitar for the first time. Now, I'm kind of okay at it. I probably was better years ago because I was doing it every day. Now it's very much once in a year I might pick that thing up off the wall. So that's where it started. I got out of doing music in about 2007. I was like heavily active in like the pop punk emo underground scene of the early 2000s. And so I did all that. And then I got into wanting to do like talk radio, which at the time, you know, podcasting was about 2 or 3 years old at this point. And I started it with live wrestling radio show every week on a website called blogtalkradio.com. I did that until 2010 because wrestling at that time was certainly not nearly as hot, not even close as to what it is now, or even back in the mid to late 90s. So kind of got burned out on it. And then I came back a few years later. I did it for a little longer while trying to mix a little bit of wrestling, but other entertainment, various topics, music. And at that point, I finally walked away from podcasting in 2015 until I restarted it again in 2017, doing just like a personal journal show. I had like a weight loss journey that I was on. I lost over 100 pounds. I've gained it all back now almost, but I did lose it at one point. And I was interviewing people from Instagram that were like on the weight loss journey. So I did that for like 3 years. And then I got into YouTube, and Mr. B said my channel sucked. And I tried to figure that out. And then somewhere along the line, I got a hold of Lummy and started volunteering for the Bubba Show, and got a job a few months ago, part-time gimmick with the Bubba Show. So,
I like them part-time gimmicks. Yeah,
I like it too. And I picked up photography. You know, I like doing that. I like doing like concerts and stuff like that. So I'm all over the place. You can take me wherever you'd like from there. But I try to like summarize it within like a minute or two answer, because I get very long-winded.
So do all of us. But that, I mean, it's almost like you've rehearsed that, Gary. That was fantastic. Really that is a great summary. Did did my friend Amber help you with that?
I mean, it reminds me, I swear I thought we just let Lex Luger in the Four Horsemen and Ric Flair wrote out his scene, or JJ
there you go
wrote it out for him. I mean, that was beautiful.
That was.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, man.
Now, what's the deal with the Mr. Beast situation?
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Well, there's actually a video on my channel. I have my own channel, Gary Cantrell, that I'm trying to revive now. And back in, this would have been November, I did a video where I try to do a video every single day in the month of November. And one of those days was me reacting to this. So I bought a book from a guy named Daryl Eves. He works with a lot of bigger YouTube guys. And they said that if anybody bought this book, you can go to this live stream, him and Mr. Beast in the same live stream. And they put up in there like, hey, put out your channel link and we'll essentially roast your channel. And they happened to pick my channel first. So this video's up there. You can see it. It's about 20 minutes of me reacting to a 10-minute video of them roasting my channel that I used to do with my cousin. We used to do food reviews. So
Okay.
Yeah, it
I've got to go
that's
check
cool.
that out.
it was so
That's awesome.
damaging. It was so damaging to my mental health for like a few months because here's a guy at the time who had
Yes.
50 million subscribers and he's telling me everything I'm doing wrong. And the key is we need to hear that. We need somebody to tell us how much we potentially suck in a carefully constructive way. And, you know, that guy pulled no punches. So it helped me to open my eyes essentially as far as like what you actually need to do on YouTube to try to grow. And I essentially try to take those things that I learned and apply them to what I'm doing to help with Rhett and Bubba and all them now. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
it's up there, but you can go check it out. And it's, man, I can watch it now without shaking, but man, the first day or two, it was tough.
Well, that's hardcore priceless advice, though. You know what I
That
mean?
is.
Like,
Yeah.
dude, I
That
mean,
is.
not many people get access to that, you know, so congratulations. Yeah, take it. I'm sure it was tough.
Yeah, very tough.
Good God.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. Well, y'all stick around. This is just the beginning with Mr. Gary Cantrell. We'll be right back. We're going to dive into some wrestling talk next, so don't go anywhere. We're back, and Gary, we know that the one thing that we've all talked about on this show since we've started to know you and the Bubba Army and all that, our first introduction to you was through a wrestling podcast that was on the Bubba Army network. And JR, huge wrestling fan. I've been re-energized, I guess you could say, since WrestleMania, really, and since a little bit before this WrestleMania. It hooked me back in, got me back into watching. I've got some of my neighbors into wrestling now. So let's just talk a little bit about wrestling. Let's start it off with, who are some of your favorite wrestlers and some of your favorite matches? Right off the bat.
I think right off the top of the list would be Austin. I mean, that's a guy that in high school, I was, you know, teenager at the time. He's flipping off his boss. I'm like, this is really cutting edge stuff. And it wasn't even so much just like the foul mouth of it. It's just the delivery, the intensity, the what is going to happen next. I mean, the night that that Vince had challenged Austin to a fight with an arm tied behind his back, and it was like a couple of weeks after WrestleMania 14, they were on this whole like easy way or hard way thing. Like that whole story arc like blew my mind. So I would say Austin is right at the top of that list. Obviously Hogan, Rock, Shawn Michaels. As far as like current, you know, Cody Rhodes, that's my guy right now.
Yep.
Match wise, I know a lot of people did not like this match per se. Probably I'm a little biased because I was front row for it, but Hogan and Shawn Michaels in 2005 at the SummerSlam.
Okay.
That was a wild match. And the reason why a lot of people don't like it is because they felt like Shawn was overselling to try to embarrass Hogan because allegedly he wasn't going to win the match. And that was a whole thing. So the whole like politics of it and all that was very fascinating to me. But I guess if we have to talk about, like, I'll give you a deep cut that a match that a lot of people don't talk about. And that is Shawn Michaels and Diesel, aka Kevin Nash, April of 96, In Your House, Good Friends, Better Enemies. They had this knockdown drag out. It was Nash's last match in the company. One of my all-time favorites. A close second is Brett and Nash at the Survivor Series 1995.
Wow. Might be the only list of all time that has Nash in one of their greatest matches.
A lot of people didn't like him as world champion. I liked him. I mean, and they were slowly starting to, he was almost like the precursor to Austin. If you really go back and watch the week-to-week television, he was starting to get really edgy like they would later do with Austin the next year.
That's
so I almost
true.
feel like it was tapped for Nash and not for Austin, but Nash left, so they put it on Austin.
And as
That's
we
really
know,
that
that's what
era's
happens. They
Yeah.
change the
That's totally what
storylines
happens.
as things develop. People get injuries, contract disputes, things like that. You have to pull the belt off this one to drop it for that one, and an intermittent champion, those type things. Yeah, and I was a big fan of Diesel, Kevin Nash, you know, a.k.a. the bouncer from the Cheetah Club in Atlanta, played basketball at University of Tennessee. And, you know, there's another one of those that I feel doesn't get enough love, who was another big guy who we just recently lost, was Sid Udy from West Memphis, Arkansas, Psycho Sid. When he first popped on the scene, I saw him as Lord Humongous in the Memphis territory. Then I watched him come over, and actually he and Texas Red, which would be The Undertaker, and their stuff in Memphis prior to that. But when Sid came over and first came into WWE with that look, and that attitude and that build, it did it for me, you know. And this was coming out of the era where it wasn't as technical as it got into in the mid '90s, late '90s, which I really liked that too, with the Benoits and Malenko and the cruiserweight, really some really mat wrestling and really technical wrestling.
Oh yeah.
But when the bigs were still there, you know, Sid coming in with that look, and we're still coming off the era where one of my favorite matches where Jake the Snake put the Cobra to bite Macho Man on the arm on live televisions on Saturday night's main event.
That's what
and
got
everybody
me in.
knew, and everybody knew right then that wasn't fake. You can say what you want about wrestling, but that snake was biting Macho Man's arm.
Yes.
And everybody's attitude changed for a second. You know what I mean?
That is the angle that brought me into wrestling fandom. 1991. I had seen it, you know, here and there over the kind of mid to late 80s, but no angle brought me into wrestling like that angle right there. And real quick on Sid, if you go back and watch Survivor Series 1996, Madison Square Garden, him and Shawn Michaels, if you watch just that entrance of Sid and you don't get goosebumps, something's wrong with you, because that is one of the most intense introductions to a guy that you'll ever see. And the New York crowd, they didn't give a shit. They were like, hey, we love Sid. You know, this is the guy we want to, and he's the bad guy. And he had a huge reaction.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I think about those moments. I've worked Madison Square Garden one time, and it was on a Miranda Lambert tour about that same era when we had met earlier.
Yes.
And the whole time I'm backstage and walking in and out of that same tunnel and concourse area that all the wrestlers came out. I'm like, this is where Hogan walked. This is where Sid. This is where everybody walked out of. That's all I could think of that whole day I'm there is, I wonder if Macho Man sat on this chair, you know, those type of things.
You get chills going in that building. I did a tour there in 2009. You paid like $20-25. They took you all over the building. It was like the best. I would have paid $150 for that tour.
Right.
I had goosebumps, man. Just literal goosebumps walking through that building.
Well, I love getting Gary's thoughts on wrestling. When we come back, we're going to get his thoughts on the current state of the WWE, AEW, and all of those as well. Y'all stay with us.
Welcome back, everybody, to Tigs Bits. We've got a very special guest today, Mr. Gary Cantrell, who is a music and wrestling aficionado. We're glad to have him on the show today. Before we went into commercial break, we were talking about favorite matches and favorite wrestlers of all time. Gary, now we want to get into a little more modern scene, which I know we're all trying to keep up with. It's a great time to be alive in wrestling. There's a lot of great wrestling on right now. What are some highlights for you of the current scene?
Well, this might be a very controversial statement by people who love the old days of the Attitude Era, but I think we are truly in the ultimate time for wrestling, and I think that right now is bigger than it's ever been. I don't think that's completely out of the realm to say, but I really enjoyed the whole Cody Rhodes story of finishing the story at WrestleMania. The fact that this man was in AEW, which is the #2 company for those that aren't paying attention, and he was able to come back to WWE. The guy bet on himself. He left the company in 2016. He went all over the world. He went to New Japan. He went to all the indies. He had a list of all these people he wanted to dance with, essentially. And he helped start this AEW in 2019. And then he comes back. We still don't know the story. I feel like one day that story will come out. But he comes back, and there's a story about how he wants to win the world title. He tells you this the night after WrestleMania in Dallas, where he successfully defeated Seth Rollins. And now we have this story arc from 22 all the way up to 2024. And to me, that's just probably my favorite thing that I've seen. Maybe a close second would be the Rhea Ripley stuff with Dirty Dom. But those are kind of like my two highlights that stick at the very top of my mind.
Yeah,
I love it.
I agree.
And you mentioned on it too, Cody left the company, left the biggest company in the world when he had a great spot there for years, a company that his father was with, his brother was with, family business, left to go travel the world, wrestle all these international stars, which he and Okada and Kenny Omega and Okada, I mean, you talking about some knockdown, just great wrestling matches. But to team up with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, independent stars from all over the world, to get with Tony Khan and start a new wrestling promotion, which a lot of people have tried since the fall of WCW, but to actually have one come to fruition, rise to the ranks it did, then leave the company, go back to the big dogs, and win the championship. I mean, they didn't write that. They didn't plan that, but boy, what a story it ended up being.
Well, and what story can you think of, other than maybe Austin flipping off his boss 25 years ago, but what other story could you possibly take and say this is the most realistic, kind of story where you can actually relate to it. Like, who in the hell doesn't want to quit their job that they do not like, go off and do something amazing and come back? Well, maybe not come back to your job. If you left it, there's probably a reason why you left it, but essentially go off and do better things. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that?
And then get asked back, then, you know,
and then build your value up. That's the thing.
Because you've done so well. Like, okay, we're sorry. Please come back and dance with us one more time.
Oh yeah,
Gary, give everybody out there listening, and I'm asking this for myself. AEW is just, I have not been able to get into it. I've tried a little bit. I just can't seem to push through. Give us a reason to want to watch AEW, a reason to like it. People like me.
I'm still waiting for a reason, honestly.
Okay.
No, okay, but let me explain that. I don't want to just drop that and then just leave it. I was there with them at the beginning. They said 2019, we're starting this thing up. I was there from day one as a fan. I attended the first Dynamite in DC. They had a lot of momentum going into 2021 where they had CM Punk the first time in 7 or 8 years since he had left the WWE. And then they had Brian Danielson come to the company. They had Adam Cole, all within like a 2-month span. All these guys came in and they had all this wave of momentum. And there was just a lot of stuff that came out on the internet as far as like backstage tension and Tony Khan's not doing this, or the Young Bucks are doing that, Jack Perry this, and it just got so much oversaturation of drama that it really took a lot of people out where they had a lot of momentum. And this was the wrong time because they're in a contract renewal right now. And the word on the street is they've re-signed. It's not official yet, but it should be coming out any moment. And that they're gonna essentially probably double their money, which is good. But you know, the thing I will say about them is they have one of the best, most deepest talent rosters in the world. Probably too many people, if we're being honest, but they have, you know, the Will Ospreys and all these guys that can take them to the next level. They just need to double down on the storytelling more, like the Hangman Page Swerve. That whole story was amazing. I love that story. More of that and less of the internet drama and all that stuff. And you got a multi-million-dollar product that's going to take the world by storm.
I think exactly like you're saying, you know, because they have the international stars like the Will Ospreys from England. They have my favorite, Pentagon, El Zero Mero, you know, those the AAA stars and the Lucha Libres from Mexico, and just too much. They need to dial it in. And I don't know, get your opinion on this, a little off topic though, but Lucha Underground I thought was a great transition into what we have in AEW now. And I think like you're saying, dial up more of that Lucha content where they're doing storyline, episodic, so almost like a soap opera of wrestling, getting really into the storylines. I think that's the angle they need to go, and keep the international flair, because that's something it feels like WWE has catered more the Disney audience. They're going straight for the kids. Let's have something for the adults, you know?
Yeah.
I would agree. They just, as long as they can get into that storytelling, they do their visuals very well. Like when you watch their promos or stuff that's not in the ring, they clearly know what they're doing from a cinematography standpoint and all that stuff. They just need to get the right stories in front of the people, and they're going to be just fine. Like I don't worry about the talent roster. I mean, they have, like you just said, they have everybody they need, and they're going to be just fine in that regard. They just got to tell the better stories, and I think they're already making roads towards that. It's just getting people back on board.
When we come back, we're going to wrap up wrestling, and then I want to talk a little bit about working with the Bubba Army.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so we'll be right back. Y'all stay tuned. We are back. We're visiting with Mr. Gary Cantrell. We've been talking a little wrestling, talking a little bit of fun stuff. We're going to continue this right now with the wrestling chatter. What do you see happening, Gary, in the storyline with WWE moving forward? But shout out to Bubba Army for sure. We're going to talk about Bubba Army and Gary's involvement in just a second. But where do you see this storyline going with Cody Rhodes? Do you think he'll remain the champion after WrestleMania in 2025?
I am going to say my gut tells me no, and that's not indicative of what he's doing now, because he's doing an incredible job but they have this thing with The Rock that they need to revisit, and that's going to come up at WrestleMania now. Rather, I'm not saying necessarily to throw it on The Rock. I don't know that Cody's going to have it by WrestleMania. I feel that somewhere in between, maybe the Royal Rumble potentially, he might lose that belt because they have this People's Championship that The Rock has, and a lot of people are saying that they introduced that in case they want to take the title off Cody and use the title maybe with Roman or whatever he's going to be doing with Solo or Jacob Fatu or whatever. And so that way that Cody and Rock will still have something to wrestle over, essentially.
Which is just going to bring in huge numbers. I mean, I can't wait until The Rock is back involved because that was just so, man, it was fun. It was. It was just the
Netflix
best.
is
It's
coming
good
up.
to see him. You know they're going to, so that's what's been happening, isn't it? This summer, because this summer got, like, right after WrestleMania, it kind of got boring. I'm just going to say it was just like it didn't get boring, but the bubble blew up. The balloon burst or whatever.
Well, you can never match Mania.
You hit the climax. So now you've got to let it build back up. They do all these international shows.
You got to have the ebbs and flows. After Mania, it's going to be a fall
off.
Hey, and while we're talking about Cody Rhodes, Stardust, whatever moniker he goes by, would you consider him the best wrestler in the world right now?
100%. No doubt.
I'd say he's the king. He's on top of the mountain right now for sure. And some of those other guys, like if you'd asked me this 6-7 years ago, I would have had to make an argument for like a Kenny Omega or an Okada even, or and everybody used to ditch on Roman, but man, Roman's put the work in. I mean, he's a good hand, no doubt. But I think Cody holds that spot up there by himself right now.
Well, you have to rank it not just by the wrestling ability, but also the ability to be a businessman, to be the, as he says, the quarterback. And
the whole thing.
Yeah, he's done an incredible job with that. Nobody can do it better. Cena did it very well. Roman's done it very well. And now Cody, they gave him the ball, and he's doing it at the top of the level, the top of the game.
Yeah, I agree.
He is. And talking about people doing it at the top of their game, Bubba is back at the top of his game. And, I mean, I was watching him this morning, just having fun. I watch him every morning. How did this whole thing, you're wearing a Bubba Army shirt right now. How'd you get involved with Bubba?
Well, going back to 2007 was the first year I heard him. He was on Howard's show with the Iron Sheik of all people, and Iron Sheik was basically talking
all back, make you humble.
That's right. And he was, talking smack about Hogan. Bubba's in the studio defending his friend, and I was like, who is this Bubba guy? So I started listening to the show, and for years I had tried to get on the show or get his attention, because at the time I was doing my own radio show and I wanted to see how I could potentially do something. And so the way that I feel like you get on somebody's radar is you offer some value, and that's going to play into how I'm with them now. But in 2010, I had the Honky Tonk Man. So we're going back to the wrestling for a second. I had him on my show. Him and Bubba had a crazy feud for years and years and years, and they would try to call into all these shows to confront him while they were on the Sirius show. Nobody would ever let him on. I had him on my show. I let them know that he was going to be on the show. And they had Spice Boy of all people that called in and confronted him. The next day, they played this confrontation on the air. So I had Bubba's attention, but I ended up retiring that show because, as I said, I got burned out on the wrestling. The product was not nearly as hot. I didn't have the passion to do it. So in 2022, I got a hold of Lummy because Bubba was looking for some clip. And if you had a gun to my head, I couldn't tell you what that clip was. I don't remember what we were looking for at the time, but I basically said, hey, man, not only will I help you look for this, but just so you know, I know how to video edit and I know how to audio edit. And if I could ever do anything for you, I would love to do it. And it was something where he told me, hey, man, there's no guarantees. Obviously, we're not paying anybody to do this. I said, no, I will volunteer to do this. And so for the next 2 years, I started doing all this various work, audio editing, video editing, because again, I feel the best way to get on somebody's radar is to offer value, to give them something that they can use. And boy, did we generate some crazy content. The Andre the Giant never brushed his teeth story from Hogan. It's like 8 million on YouTube, dude. I never thought that would happen. Wow. I never could see that in a million years. And there's a couple other ones that are 7 million, 2 million. And it's been like 50 million in views just from vertical shorts that were created.
We'll continue this conversation, continue talking about Bubba. and gear talk and some content stuff coming up. I want to dive more into that. Millions of views on that vertical stuff. So we'll be right back. Thanks for sticking with us. We're back with Gary Cantrell talking a little Bubba Army and wrestling too. But we were just wrapping up. Look at that. Look at that koozie, that fine koozie that you've got over there.
Get that at
Bubba Army.
And we got some alpha.
Oh yeah, hit that alpha.
There we go. That'll get this thing crunk, you know.
I bet that hat has had that beautiful Tigs Bits hat that you were wearing. Blasey has had so much, just a little bit of spray. I bet it smells like alpha.
Damn right it does.
You need to win, and you win all the time, right?
That's exactly what you do.
He's alpha head to toe, baby. Ain't nothing non-alpha. Ain't nothing beta about Blasey.
Look at the gun sticking out, man. He's got the gun sticking out. Look at this guy.
That's right. That's right.
He's trying to get in shape because him and Dr. Dan are going to do a death match at BARP next year.
I'll be there to film it.
I like that. It's turned into a death match now.
Blasey's like, please quit trying to get me and Dr. Dan to fight. I'm like, no, you have to. It'll be great.
It started as a pose off, and now somebody's gonna die. Yeah, somebody's
bringing Mills Lane. We're bringing claymation Mills Lane to referee the match. It's gonna be great.
And then he'll pull up in his Ferrari and his Lamborghini and be like, "Do you really want to do this?" No, I don't.
Hey, you pull up in a paid vehicle with a gas card. I don't know who's winning here.
That's true too.
That is true. That is true. Well, when we were leaving, when we went to the commercial break just last, we were talking a little bit about these videos, these vertical videos that you make for Bubba. How did you get started into making these types of videos? Because they're fantastic. Number one, I love it. This could be the rest of the show as far as I'm concerned, but I will spare the boys on this. You and I will do this solo at some point and just have a conference call, or do something like that, do a little Zoom meeting and exchange ideas. But how did you start doing verticals for him? Because they have taken off. They're fantastic.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. This was around the time where we were talking about how the Mr. Beast thing like really just like blew my mind and gave me some PTSD from telling me how bad my channel sucked. But I always follow different creators when they go on these kind of podcasts, and Mr. Beast will go on these live streams, and Daryl Leaves and all those guys I mentioned, Colin and Samir, another great channel to follow when it comes to content talk. But around this time, shorts were being heavily prioritized on YouTube. I think they've dialed that back just a little bit, but they used to be very prioritized. You could drop it. It's almost like a slot machine. You hit it down, 1 million views. Bam! You know, it's like there's no rhyme or reason to it at that time. But so basically, we had Kurt Angle on the show in October of 22. I had saw him at a signing, and I texted Lummy. I said, "Hey, man, would you think you'd be interested in having Kurt on?" He's like, "Yeah, if we can get him." I'm like, "Well, he's sitting here right in front of me signing autographs. Let me see if I can get his information." So we get him on the show, and I start cutting these clips of him talking into the vertical short form. And Rhett would go in and add a little bit of something to it, because he would throw in like some 2 or 3 second clips of the actual WWE footage, which is kind of a gray area a little bit. I mean, I think if you're at like 3 seconds or less, you're fine. Right. But that's not official. Please don't take those words as official advisement. And, he even threw some captions on it, which is what got me to do captions in the first place. He gave me that great idea, and I started adding them to all these videos. But basically, it was Kurt telling these stories. And I thought, what if we do this with like Hogan stories? That would be fun, because there's like 100 million Hogan audio things. Here's a story about Andre never brushing his teeth. Here's a story about the Ultimate Warrior gassing out at WrestleMania 6. We don't know if these stories are true, but fuck it, we'll just let it go. And Texas Tornado, how he like talked to him like a day before he died and all this stuff. So these stories people just found very interesting. So the idea would be to find some various photos and clips, splice them in. I actually have ADHD officially, like before everybody thought it was cool to have it and say they had it. Like I actually was diagnosed with it in the mid-90s. And so if I see something that bores me, like within the first 3 seconds, I'm clicking off. I don't even give it 5 seconds or 10 seconds. But that's the typical behavior of most people watching these vertical short forms. So you have 3 seconds to hook these people. And if you don't, you're done. So that's the kind of formula that I try to use. One of the pieces of the formula to use is to try to catch their eye in the first 3 seconds, show them something crazy, and try to get them to stick around for the story.
That's kind of what I've discovered here as I've been fine tuning some of our shorts and things like that. And it's amazing. It's all about the hook. You got to hook them. You got to have a hook, even if it's ridiculous and it doesn't make any sense to what the video is actually about a little bit. If it's close, you know, like you've just got to throw something up there. Food videos, because I love to cook and I'm always cooking. I do a lot of cooking at the house. So easy content for me to just set a camera up, chop it up, put it out there, because our content of us just sitting here talking, yes, if we have something that we're talking about controversial, those clips will pop, but you have to put in something else. You have to put pictures of them. You have to put a video of something. You've just got to keep it moving. I have ADHD as well, so and I've had it for a long time, and I had to kind of resort to that. So it's interesting to hear you say that, because that's kind of what my mentality went to is, would you watch this? Yeah. Would you watch this? No. Would you watch the 300 videos that you've done? What about, so I went back to the well. Let's look at the ones that have done well. Why? Very easy. They had a hook. All of them. The ones that did well had hooks.
You want to see Tigs get punched in the face? Watch this.
You know? It's like in music, the same thing. A good song title will get you to go look at it just because, like, well, it's an interesting song title or an interesting band name. It used to be what the album cover looked like or the CD cover. Like, oh, this looks weird. Let me see what this Disco Rick and the Dogs is all about. And same with the song when it comes in. If the hook hooks you, if it's you say it best when you say nothing at all. Boom, there's your hook. You're hooked. You know, and you go back to it. So
well,
a lot of similarities between entertainment and athletics and all and music and wrestling. I mean, it all intertwines. It's wild.
It's all a soundbite, baby. It's all a soundbite.
Hey, it's the same thing in sales. You got to gain favorable attention right out of the gate, and then at that point you can tell your story. But you can't tell your story and then try to gain favorable attention at the end. It just does not work that way.
It don't work.
I got to tell you this, speaking about the music, I follow a lot of these artists on like Instagram and whatnot. And one of the things that really captivates me is a lot of these guys are making these videos like movies now, like whoever's on tour that weekend. Here's the 3 dates we filmed. Here's clips of them on the stage. Here's some photos. Here's them walking out on the stage. I mean, these things are like actual movies in less than a minute. It inspires the heck out of me. I got to tell you, like, I don't know that I'll ever enter like concert videography necessarily, because I really love the art of the pictures. And I think there's a fine line to do both. But that's like a whole nother level, because they're doing like motion graphics. They're like, you know, all these crazy videos I've seen. They're literally like these cinematic 1 minute movies. It blows my mind.
It's fun, man. It's amazing the stuff that people are able to do now. And I'm glad y'all brought that back up. I'm glad we brought music back up, because when we come back, we're going to probably finish the rest of this show talking about music. We'll be right back. We are back, and this is the bread and butter of what we love to talk about over here at Tigs Bits, I would say, is music. And we kind of ended that, and we've tap danced around it this whole show, but you, sir, are a music aficionado, go to a lot of concerts, have an amazing camera, and take some just unbelievable concert footage. Let's talk a little bit about music, man. What are some of your current favorite bands that people need to check out that they may not have heard of?
Ooh, man.
Because you've turned me on to a couple.
Which one could you tell me that one first, and then make sure I don't say them twice?
I'm trying to remember the name of them right now. You post them a lot, though.
Oh, was it Good Terms?
Yes, Good Terms.
Yeah, they're out of L.A.
I keep getting them. You didn't turn me on to these guys, but I get them, and there's a band named Soft Cell. They're punk. They're British punk. They're awesome. They somehow, because I think I started following those guys.
Yep, Good Terms.
Then they showed up. Yep. So then they showed up on my Spotify list, and
I found Good Terms on Reddit in a pop punk subreddit. Like they were just like, you know, they were sharing their stuff. They're out there grinding, they're hustling, they're trying to make some vertical videos and get people to watch their stuff, and they just captivated me. So there's somebody that I'm super excited about. There's another guy. Well, it's a band, but it's a guy that runs a band, Bill Murray. Have you heard of this guy, Bill Murray? Not the actor. It's a band.
Yes. No, there's a band named Bill Murray?
Yeah, he's done songs with Mitchell Tenpenny and Cameron Marlowe and all these guys. I mean, it's great stuff. I actually recently saw for the very first time in the country world a guy by the name of George Burge, who I really enjoy. I got a chance. I met his photographer. He invited me out to take some photos of him down in Charleston on the Sam Hunt tour. So that guy, I think, is going to be
love George.
He's going to be a force to be reckoned with here in the next couple of years. So
yeah,
those are kind of the people I'm really excited about right now.
Yeah, George. I've got to meet George. I'm buddies with George and Matt Stale. They're big buddies. I got to hang out with them. They've came and done our St. Jude event we do in Little Rock every year, a golf tournament. Because George was an All-American golfer at University of Texas too. He's a ringer on the golf course too. So
one of those.
Yes,
yeah,
he's one of those guys. But good guy. Yeah, I'm a big fan of George Burge, no doubt, and great human being. I know I say that a lot, but most of these I won't if it's not true. But he is. He's a great dude, and I can't say enough good things about him for sure.
Yeah, I hadn't met him yet, but the live show was just out of this world, man. And I think he's got a song coming out this Friday. I don't know when this is posting, but on the 20th, he has a new one coming out that I've already heard on the Instagram he's been sharing. It's unreal, man.
Nice.
I got to check this dude out.
Heck yeah, dude. I've already written it down for sure.
Have you ever listened to Dexter and the Moon Rocks, Gary? Do you know who they are? They call themselves Space Grunge. They're cowboy grunge. You got to check them out. They're different. They're kind of emo-y in a way. And they're not country at all, but they have some. I don't know how to explain them. I think them calling themselves Space Cowboy Grunge is probably about the most accurate way you can explain them, but I think you'd like them. You need to check them out.
I will check them out. Yeah, I'll have to add them to my Apple Music. I had just opened that to kind of see some of the stuff that I was listening to. Another country guy, Austin Williams. Are you familiar with him, JR?
I'm not.
Broken Things, Break Things is a new EP. A guy I went to high school with actually co-wrote the song. This guy, Nick Bailey, he's a writer, producer. I think he's actually based in Nashville now. He used to be in LA. We weren't like really close friends or anything. We went to high school. He actually played in a couple of bands that I knew, Over It and Runner. They were like pop punk, that kind of genre. And now he's doing songwriting in Nashville. And he likes to share stuff on his stories. That's actually how I found out about the Ernest years ago. Before he became a country guy, he was doing like rap and R&B, and Nick had actually co-wrote a couple of his like R&B rap stuff. Yeah, Snow. There you go. Oh God, what was that? Damn it, Trouble with Us. That was a song I remember that Nick worked on. That was 2017. He had put out Bad Boy. That was the first song he had put out that I remembered. Because I think FGL was like gassing his stuff up too at that time. So yeah, that was. I find out a lot of stuff from Nick because I follow him on Instagram. He's always sharing what he's working on. But Austin Williams, he sounds like a good one too.
Love it.
There you go. There you go. Well, when we come back, we're gonna wrap this up, finish out with a little bit of music, and we'll be right back. Y'all stay tuned. We are back, and we're in the home stretch here with Mr. Gary Cantrell. Unfortunately, we can't talk on here for 5 hours straight because if we could, we would go into gear. But if you want to hear the gear talk, I got a feeling that Tigs and Gary are going to make a separate show just talking about gear.
I'm game. Yeah, let me know.
That for the geeks. We'll do it for the geeks, Gary.
Yeah, we got to get Gary to come on our live one week too, so we can really go all in and not have to worry about time.
Yeah, we can. And just do what we want to do. But first of all, Gary, show us that fine camera of yours.
Yes.
This is why people like him so much.
This is the Sony A7S III. I spent way too much money on this. I got it as a YouTube camera, but it does incredible photography stuff as well. And this Sony is really good in low light. And at the concerts, especially some of the smaller shows with the kind of terrible lighting, you need something like this with the higher ISOs that really comes out well.
Is that what you take? I know that you and I have texted at times because I've seen you take some photos. Your comment is the best camera that you've got is the one that's in your hand.
I agree with that,
typically.
Yes.
But
I'm not advocating people that spend way too much money on a camera. You're better off using your phone. This was just something that we were filming YouTube, my cousin and I, when we were doing food reviews, and every camera we would use would overheat because we'd be in the car and it's too hot. And this thing's like a tank. It does not overheat. So this thing is a beast.
Well, that's a good thing to note. Is that what you've got there, JR?
Well, I've got the Sony.
It looks like an A60
6100.
There you go, A6100. I used to have that camera.
only thing I've noticed on it is it would get a little hot sometimes, but great camera. I don't have kick-ass.
You got the same camera?
What are you using it for?
I was using it to film podcasts.
Oh, very nice. Yeah. Yeah.
But when I used to do the Justin Moore podcast, we would record our audio and video separately, dump them down. The producer would put them together. So now we use one of these services, but this is what I use for that 4K, and it's really good for the video part of it. I mean, the capturing the faces and all that stuff is nice.
It's beautiful. Beautiful camera.
I used to use a GoPro as my webcam. But that was what would happen, and we were in the middle of an interview with DDP of all people, and boom, I lost the camera for 30 minutes. I just sat here. He could hear me and could see them, but it was what a nightmare. So
been through so many cameras.
Why do they get so hot?
It's just it's when you're recording locally. So I'll give people listening a little pro tip, if you will. But if you just stream on the cameras and not record anything on the camera, if you just stream from it. Most of the time, it will be okay. It won't necessarily get hot because it's not recording to an SD card. You're just piping it through a computer, or if you have one of those monitors. I used to have one. It's called a Ninja 5 monitor. Really cool monitor. It records raw native video straight from the sensor, and that takes all the work off of the camera and allows the camera to stay nice and cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. See this. It gets pretty daggum technical when you start getting into all of these things, and we haven't even scratched the surface on what we will be doing on this show. Yeah. But we're gonna need at least JR's got that good camera. That's a very
nice camera.
We got to start.
We got to start.
I got two of them.
Oh yeah, those are very solid.
Camera. Jeez.
And you just plug them up and you let them go, and anything Sony. I mean, I'm an advocate for Sony. They don't pay me $1. They don't even know I exist. But I love Sony, truly. I think their products are the best around that you can get when it comes to photography, videography, some of those photos we talked about earlier. All that stuff was taken on this camera. Although, as JR might know, in the concert world, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can't just walk in with a camera like that. You need to be properly credentialed. So how I got my start is point and shoot was completely fine to bring in. And I would just bring that in, and I'd be that guy in the very front row. I have this one photo of Maren Morris from like 5 years ago that is like one of my favorite photos I ever took. It was shot on a damn point and shoot that I paid $300 for, and it looks just incredible. And so some of your best photos can be off of these smaller cameras. You gotta go with whatever you have, and if you want to take it from there, then you upgrade from there as you need be.
That makes sense. And look, we're going to have to wrap it up here, but we appreciate you coming on with us today, Gary.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Give everybody your handles on socials. How can they follow you? Go to your YouTube channel and all of that good stuff.
I'm going to make it very simple for you. At Gary Cantrell. That is Gary. That's one R. Cantrell. Just think of Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains. No relation. Certainly don't have the money, but just think that name. Put a Gary with one R in front of it, and you got me right there.
Hey, and I got one last question, Gary. Do you think Perry Farrell and Dave Navarro will be at WrestleMania wrestling each other after the concert incident this past weekend?
They certainly should if they want to make some money. If they want to make some real money, let's do it. Sign it up. I'll see it.
Right. Hit it while it's hot, right?
Boom.
Yep.
Get it while it's hot. Good job, JR. We'll see you guys next week.
Later.